page Samach Daled, second line from the top.
Look, I was staring before you had it on
And the principle that we are discussing starting from the point that actually the entire discussion right now is almost on the sidelines, because we are aiming to explain the Ayin, how it is that the ha'orah that comes through Avot is superior to the mehus that is in Zoh, in Yichud Zoh, Zum. All to explain why neshamis who are from Amahus, who are those in Yichud Zum, in Yichud Gufni, yet they are longing for the union from the Shiki, which is a Ruchni, which is coming from Avot. And the principle to explain this is that this ha'orah, Avot comes only ha'orah, not the etzem. The mahus in the Yichud Zum, in Yichud Gufni, it comes to the mahus. From chochmah bina comes only ha'orah. But the ha'orah that comes from chochmah bina is superior to the mahus that comes through Surah. This is the principle that we said. But then, so before we even going to explain the principle, how can it be that the ha'orah should be superior to mahus? We started discussing this itself, the mahus that comes through Yichud Gufi, the Yichud Zum. And we said that that comes to Yichud Zum is not just the Yichud Zum itself. There is an element in it that is also from Pnimis v'Yatzmis. Pnimis v'Yatzmis extends in everywhere. How can it be? If this is a Yichud Gufni, how can it be a from Pnimis v'Yatzmis? We say that there is a difference in madreges of Pnimis v'Yatzmis. And then we come right away to a powerful question. Pnimis v'Yatzmis, we say Pnimis v'Yatzmis, mamash. This is literally that very same Ayin. So how can there be any from madreges in this? If this is the same thing. And yet, we are saying, yes, indeed, it is Pnimis v'Yatzmis mamash, and yet there are madreges in this. So to explain this, we're not going to logical explanations. We are going through, so to speak, demonstrations in various levels. We said, for one thing, that Pnimis Abba, Pnimis Atik. Pnimis Abba, Pnimis Atik means that the Pnimis of chochmah is the very Pnimis of Atik itself. Atik is Atzmus, relative to chochmah, relative to Tzvim, which is called Atzmus. The Pnimis of Atik and Pnimis of chochmah are one and the same. Pnimis Abba, Pnimis Atik. So even though we're saying that it's a one and the same, and yet there's a big difference of how this pnimius is recognized in Atik and how it is recognized in chochmah. It shines through the chochmah. There's an inner from atzmius in chochmah, but in chochmah it shines through in a manner where chochmah becomes a source for the lower spheres, whereas the way it is in Atik, it cannot be relating to lower spheres. And as he explains further down, that Pnimis Abba can be reached, he says, to mitzvahs leisaseh. And the similar thing is the halachas. Halachas who aruchis lefaneinu. The halachas that come down to us, all the way down to our world. Halachas gashmiyim. Now these halachas are representative of pnimis v'yatzmis. And yet, pnimis v'yatzmis cannot possibly be relating to gashmis, to gashmis, and definitely not to mitzvahs, to halachas gashmi. And yet, when it comes into chochmah, it can be related to gashmis. So, as we went along, we always, deviate a little bit and try to get a little bit of a handle in our terms, in seichelic terms. What does this mean? Not just words, it's the same and it's not the same. The most challenging Ayin to understand is first and foremost how in atzmiyus there are all kinds of, if it's an in atzmi, within that there are all kinds of different content. Just to jump across, mentioned in the very well-known principle that the Osid Loving, there will be Gilui of Atzmus itself in our world, and yet the world will not be Yisbat. It will still have all the things that the world has, even though there's Gilui of Atzmus. It's phenomenal thought. To understand this principle, how from Etzem can relate to derivatives of it. How can Etzem be a derivative? So we give the mashal from the human being. The human being occupies a position in the world of an etzem. The human being is not an etzem. It's composed of 613 different pieces, with an neshama, with life, and so forth. But in terms of his position in the world, he is an etzem. To the extent that it is not incorrect to say that the whole world is for the sake of the human being. Not for the human being, the world has no significance. The whole world is representative of the reality of the human being. This is what the world is. And if not for the human being, it has no value. It's a huge expanse with so many different aspects. All of these aspects have a value only because there's a human being. And all of these aspects are reflective of the human being. Like we mentioned many times, in Bochi Nafshi we say that there is the Yam, and in the Yam there are all kinds of creatures and so forth. And Shomaniyas Haleichum. And boats are floating there. Boats is something, is kind of a human invention. That's what the whole thing is all about. That's what the whole thing is about. Then, that has a human quality. Oniyas Haleichum. There's a pasuk that says, "Gam ha'olam nosam belibam." This is a pasuk in Kehelas, I believe. "Gam ha'olam nosam belibam." That the whole world is actually contained in the heart of man.
In the heart?
Heart of man. And we give it a little bit of a tangible means of relating to it. And we're saying, based on what the Gemara says, unchanged Beis and Yodam. And then we say, unchanged Beis and Yodam. It's not just a Beis. In this Beis, there are all kinds of different services. The tables and the chairs and the beds and all the utensils, everything that's in the house, it's not an afterthought. Oh, I need this, so I put this in. This is all representing the spirit of man. A house that's missing a table, for example, or a chair, it's not that it's missing certain services. It's missing a human quality. And we pointed out, and this is what we're saying here. Yes, it's missing a human quality. And when it's there, it's the human spirit that creates it. But there is no comparison to the human spirit that creates the furnishings to the human spirit that creates the home. That's a much deeper, a higher level, and yet it's the very same human spirit. The Gemara says, which means that it is human exclusively to eat in a home and to eat in a proper way. Even though he could be eating, walking around. So even there's the principle of the human being captured and expressed. So here again we have, and this is the principle of the human being, this is the essence. This essence is recognized at two different levels. On the level of the home itself, on the level of the amenities of the home. And it's the very same essence. The amenities in the home, the tables, is not just for comfort purposes, it is representative of the human being. I'd like to elaborate on that last statement a little bit. The truth is that and the table and the chairs and everything else, all the amenities is for comfort for a person. That's how we define them. You're not comfortable, you have to sit. Then you can relax and eat properly. And if you don't have it, you cannot really relate to what you're doing. So therefore it is a functional element. So for this we explain that this is the principle of the human etzem. A human being is the king in the world. And a king, by definition, has to be in comfort. And if he's not in comfort, then he's not a king. This is how the human being is an etzem in the world. He's not a stranger here. This is his world. Therefore, if he's lacking these small comforts, it's lacking a human quality. Not lacking comforts, lacking a human quality. What's a kelev? A kelev is one who does not have a home. A kelev eats any place. A kelev is the most hefker entity. Doesn't care where he eats and what he eats. He's a kelev. And the human being, he does not. If he partakes of the world in the same manner as a kelev, he is lacking not comfort. He's lacking comfort, but this comfort is a representative of the human presence in the world. This is the most important principle for us to understand. We say, oh, human beings and animals are different. What is the difference? What is the principal difference? What is the atzmi's difference? The principal difference is that everything in the world, the animals, everything in the world are for some kind of a purpose. They are not there for their own sake. They are there for what they produce, for what they services that they provide. The human being, he is there for his own purpose, for his own presence. This is the etzem. This is what the world is all about. Therefore, anything that serves the human being, this is an atzem, an essential requirement, not a functional requirement. In the Beis Hamikdash, before they shechted the sheep, they would give it water to drink. What was that about? To make the sheep feel good? It was so that after it's shechted, it can be skinned easily.
From a gold cup, right?
What?
From a gold cup. What, from a gold cup?
From a gold cup, not because it's a korban. Because its whole presence is not for its own sake. Its whole presence in the world is not for its own sake. The human being is an atzmi in the world because the Eibishter has created the world for his sake. Not an atzmi of himself. The Eibishter gave him that status. Nas Odom B'Tzalmenu Kid Museinu V'Yirdu B'Dgas HaYomim. He rules the world. That's what the world is about. That's what the world is about. Within that atzmius, we can readily recognize various levels. And at every level, the atzmiyu element surfaces, but in a different form, on a different level. When you speak in terms of the general terms, Odom shein lebayis shein yodom. You're not talking about furnishing. He's talking about a place in the world. From that perspective, you can't start talking. What about furnishing? So he doesn't. First of all, he has to be anchored. He has to be real. From that is then derived that you have to have furnishings. It's the very same reality. Mamosh etzem, but it's on a different level. Mamosh etzem on a different level. It's a very interesting.
The first one is much more essential at, having a place.
It is true. But once you come to this level, this is equally essential. Because
when we say that the human being is an atzmi, and we say the human being is atzmi, it still needs Hashem.
No.
But where do we?
So I explain all the time. He's an atzmi because Hashem gave him that position.
Yeah, but how could a human being feel that he's an atzmi? He's dependent on Hashem.
Ooh. He feels like he's an atzmi that he serves directly in Hashem. That's what he's an atzmi. He's not working in the world to provide for himself. Everything he does to provide for himself is avodas Hashem. Everything he does, he's in service Hashem.
So then it's Hashem. Why is he an atzmi? It's all about Hashem. What means that a human being is an atzmi?
I explained. Hashem created the world. In this world, there are all kinds of creatures. There are creatures that have a primary value and a secondary value. These values have been given to them by their creator. Not the world gives them that value. The creator gave him that value. This is shot that he is an atzmi, that Eibusha gave him that quality, that value of atzmi. Atzmi does not mean, as we show him, that he is independent of Hashem. That's not what the implication is. It means that he has an essential value, an essential presence. When you shecht a sheep, you're doing exactly what the sheep is created for. You shecht it and you kasher it and you make a meal with it. A human being is a real presence. A human being, God forbid, if a human being is hurt, it's a paramount crime. He does not serve the world, he serves the Eibusha directly. That's mit an atzmi.
Why do we call this atzmi?
Atzmi means that he is there for his own sake. Clearly, this is only a moshel for atzmi. This is not that, but yes, in our terms, this is for the atzmi. He is there for his own sake. That's mit an atzmi.
Hashem's.
Hashem created him, giving him his own value. And he directly serves Hashem.
His value is how he's serving Hashem.
Huh?
So his value is how he's serving Hashem. If he's not, if he's acting like a kelef,
If he's acting like he's abusing his station. He's not living up to what he is. I'm hearing a very, very sensitive thing, which is important that we understand.
Can I give a muscle to it?
Want to give a muscle to it?
Yeah, in Allah, my own head.
Go ahead.
I just think
We are drowning in the shalim.
so no, this is the way I clarify it for me. Like when Yom Kippur, Machlekes if someone is machaper or not. But the point of Boshich is if you do something itself, which is against Yom Kippur, like eating, then it doesn't forgive. So too, Hashem made a man an atzmi. Why is he atzmi? Because Hashem made him so. If he does something which is opposed to his atzmi quality, so he's no longer this atzmi for the moment. He's doing something against his atzmi quality.
Okay, that's the violation of it. But this whole principle of Shemit Atzmi is no question. Everything is pointing to Hashem, to Hashem's presence. Everything, because that's the most issue. That's the only reality there is. The question is, in what manner does it point to us? Hashem created the whole world. And because Hashem created the world, He has put into the whole world a godly value. Why do we respect anything in the world? Because it's a Eibishter's creation. You're not allowed to destroy a fruit tree. Why not? You're not allowed, the halacha says that you're not allowed to throw macholim around. You have to deal with food stuff. It has to be dealt with cover. If there's a piece of bread on the floor, if it is akazais, you're not allowed to step on it. Even though it's not clean, you can't eat it. You pick it up and throw it in the garbage, but you're not allowed to step on it because it's not covered halachon. I was going to cover the halachon because this is the Eibishter's creation. The Eibishter created it for his purpose, and it has to be dealt with the recheretz, with cover. So everything has a godly presence in it, and therefore it has to be regarded in that respect. But in that respect, there is a phenomenal difference between the human being and everything else. Human being, there's a whole mesichta recheretz of how a human being is to behave, and how he has to recognize an other human being and himself and so forth. What's mesichta recheretz? Why do you need that for? This is not only for mitzvahs, because a human being is an Eibishter's a creation so Menegid Musayin. He represents the Eibishter's presence in the world. It was Mikanatzmi. For his own sake, not for what services he can give, but by virtue of his being in the world, that will represent the Eibishter's presence. We said many times that the world, prior to the creation of Adam Arisha, for the first 5.5 days, was a worthless, a meaningless world. It was also extremely showing all the capabilities, but it had no real value of its own. Adam Rishon came into the world, now it became a real world. Because now it is consciously representing the Mebash's presence. Adam Rishon knows the Mebash. Das mit dem Atzmi. And you know, the intellect, when a person knows the truth, the godly truth, not by personal experience and by touch, but by knowing it, that comes from an Atzmi. You still have difficulty in understanding this? There's no question that it has, that is dependent on Hashem. Everything is dependent on Hashem. That is goes without. It doesn't need to be said. Answering is for what purpose is he in this world? What is his value in this world? What is his position? That's what we're saying. That an animal has its turf. An animal has its area, like the lions have their turf, but they have to protect their turf with their own power. A human being, he owns a piece of property, nobody's going to touch it. He owns it. And you can venture into that without his permission. No way. This is an atzmi. An atzmi is from that a human being can have a big home, even places in the home that he has never seen, he doesn't use, but he personally is present in the entire home. Atzmi has an air, aura, because he has a real presence. He automatically is present everywhere in his home. Das mit dem Atzmi. We explained many times about the sunlight. The sun, see this, it refers to the sun as etzem behiri. Etzem behiri means not behiri that by consuming fuel, by making fire, giving off light. But it is a behiri in itself. It has the quality of giving light. And as I said, I mentioned many times, that the oil should even be rishis, that oil was imbued into the sun. So that the light of the sun is pure light, not as a result of heat, of the energy.
But the sun is easier to understand because, as we said, it's a behiri. His life is not dependent on a week or something or fuel. It comes from itself, and this is given by Hashem. But in a human being, it's not the same parable. It's a behiri. He serves Hashem.
When there is a minyan, we're going to have a minyan. A minyan consists of 10 people. Sometimes a person can be sitting and sleeping, and he can be counted in the 10. How is that? He's not a participant, he's sleeping.
Because his Metzius is not described in terms of function. Is he sleeping or not sleeping? His Metzius is an etzem, the fact that
That's what I'm giving you the emotion.
So we're saying that his very presence represents Hashem.
Yeah. You can be sleeping and you can count in the other 10.
Also, you have the spark of Hashem inside.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world?
There's nothing. Everything has a functional means of identity.
It's not doing its function, it's essentially...
Yeah, there's not. It doesn't have an essential thing. It's identified by function rather than by presence. A human being has an essential presence.
He's more identified by presence.
Huh?
He's more identified by presence than by function.
Yeah, but okay. Fine. As long as we are getting through, it's okay. But it never is unified that he is Etzem because he's independent of Hashem. That is not in our thinking process. Huh?
You're saying the expression that he's an etzem is the fact that he can be there and we can say whatever we need to say. I'm saying the fact that he's there, you're saying that he manifests his Atzmi's quality and the fact that we can now do things to serve Hashem now that he's here. That he's the 10th we can make a minyan, so he's counted as a minyan, what's the point? So that we can all...
Okay. Anyway, so Etzim, the principle of Etzim, the Rebbe says, is that wherever it is, it's the very same. There are no multiple Atzmos in a person, for example. Wherever he is, it's the same. And yet, there's a difference in Madrega. The way the Etzim is recognized on the higher koiches, and Beis is recognized in the chochmah, and so forth. So the Rebbe, the Moshalim that we're using here is the way it is in Keser, the way it is in Atik, and the way it is in chochmah. It's the very same Etzim. And yet, there's a big difference. The way chochmah recognizes the way chochmah is capable of translating that etzem on the practical level in terms of table mitzvahs. The difficulty, and this is the thing which to me is most important, is we should understand how chochmah has an in of etzem. Chochmah is seichel. Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Ati. This is, to me, a very important principle. How it is that in Chochmah, this is something that is close to home. This is something which is important for us on a very practical level. Saying that in Pnimius Chochmah, we sense the Pnimius of the Nefesh itself. Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Ati, that's true also in the human being. And for this we spend many hours, many mishalim, to demonstrate where is this chochmah element. Seichel normally is something that you can ask a question, a kasha on. Like we said yesterday, the whole day we talking about, how do you know? Seichel always leaves opening to say, okay, how do you know? Prove it. This is all seichel that is based on a worldly level of orientation. But then there is chochmah. Chochmah is not based on the worldly level of orientation and awareness. Chochmah goes straight to the truth itself. Chochmah knows things because there's a motivation. That's how it knows things. It's not something that figures out, and it doesn't need any proofs. This is where Amunah is contained. I know it because this is the reality. I know it from its inception. I know it at the truest level that it exists. Before any manifestation. Those mean chochmah. The Rambam says, how do you know it? Do you know it by proofs? That's not idea. That's indirect now. That's not really knowing it. That cannot be the basis for everything else. Means means that when I see a table, There's a I can understand how come there's a table, because there's a motzei. That allows it to exist. Das mit motzei mamche konvenz. Everything exists because there is a relation, that therefore everything can exist. Not the other way around. I see a table, that's proof that there is a motzei. No, the other way around. The chochmah goes the other way around. What justifies the fact that I see a world is because I know there's a motzei. That's how. This is the chochmah. This is the seichel ha-mehus. This is why everything makes sense.
It's called an atzmi because it doesn't need any proof.
Yes, not it's called atzmi. It is going correct, because it recognizes the etzem truth. Etzem truth does not need any proof, and it cannot be proved.
Cannot be proven.
It cannot be proven. It doesn't have any tangible presence. This is why this is known only to the neshama. It's not known. We cannot teach this into anything else. The neshama, the neshama, nishmas ha'odam. Nishmas ha'odam has an inner veliki in it, and therefore it knows the truth of Elokus.
You say that chochmah recognizes atmi. Why does that now mean that it is atmi?
In order to recognize atzmi, he has to recognize. In other words, if it itself, I'll leave it all for time. It an atzmi means that it is a keri for atzmi. So that's like we say always a moshel from sight. In sight we see the etzem reality. We don't see it through a proof. We see it because it's there. Why? Because sight is bottled to the truth. The eye is translucent. It's bottled to the truth, and whatever the truth is, that's what it says. It is bottled to the truth. It is not in itself an atzmi. It's bottled to the truth, and therefore it brings the truth down to the lower kochos. But then, once it comes into chochmah, then it is possible to translate that oir into gashmis dike mitzvos. We spent all the time on this. I want to bring it to a conclusive point. I always demonstrate this principle. I'd like we should understand this. We have, I said, sight is like chochmah. We have sight, and in sight we see the reality. So we have these two situations. You're standing outside, and you're looking inside. And by looking inside, you see everything that's going on outside. And it's real. You see it in a very real way. Compare that to then stepping inside and being inside. You're inside now. And everything that you're inside means that you're inside together with everything that's inside, that's there. What is the difference between seeing it, which you see the reality, and being in a Okay, please understand the following. In order that there should be a mitzvah, in order there should be anything of a worldly presence, it has to have time and space. Time and space are the primary ingredients for any presence in the world. Sight, like chochmah. Chochmah is in Boragam in one instant. Sight is also in one instant. But that instant is also an instant. It's an instant in time. It's very quick because you directly relate to the truth. But nevertheless, it's an instant of time. Therefore, what you observe in one instant, and we always point out that this is a phenomenal thing. You observe in one instant a whole expanse of space, but you are observing it in space and time. No matter how condensed it is, it still is something which is in time and space. But then when you walk inside, how long does it take to be inside?
How long does it take to cross the threshold?
No.
How long does it take to
You
be
ask
there?
me, how long does it take to be inside? To look inside is a second, it's an instant. How long does it take to be inside?
Less than an instant.
Hello?
No time.
Can't say.
Can't
No
take some
time, no time.
Takes no time. It's not in time and space. That sense of reality, the inside, that is not in time and space, cannot be translated of furnishings, how big this room is. No, nothing at all. It's not in time and space. When you're observing it, you say, how many pieces of furniture are there? Even though you're observing it in one instant. But there is time and space involved. So you can start talking in terms of how big is the space. But being inside is not in time and space. And therefore that does not relate to the concept of time and space, of action.
When you say being inside,
One second, I want to finish it. This is the principle that Rebbe is saying over here. The way it is in Atik, you cannot reach it. There's no halachas that can emanate from this. Practical halachas gashma. You cannot do this and do this. That will be in conformity to Atik. It's not capturing it. It's a mile of time and space. Of time and space. Halachas means do this and do that. That has to have an element of time. It doesn't translate in that. Once it comes into Pnimis Abba in chochmah, chochmah is like an observer of this truth. Then you can say halachas. Do this and don't do that. This is what we say. That once the etzem, this is the same truth of etzem. Because chochmah is privy, is open to that, because of the beetle of chochmah, you can relate to the etzem directly. To the truth, because of its truth. But it is observing it. Therefore you can be reached, it says, through mitzvahs leisavseh. And it can, and halachas, haruchas lefanenu also emanate from there. Halachas have to do with practical thing, do's and don'ts. Has to be an element of time, and that first begins to only chochmah can relate to it. Above chochmah doesn't relate to it.
To remain on this call, press 1.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Disconnected.
All right. This is what we finished learning on Friday, and this is what we're concluding now. I'd like to point it from inside. I'm going to just go through quickly 3 lines from the bottom on the previous page. Pnimius abo, hu pnimius atik mamush. It is the pnimius of atik mamush, the very same pnimius. This is why in abo, in chochmah, there is that clear truth itself. But the question of how do you know that totally does not apply. And yet still, that pnimis of atik, as it is manifest in pnimis abo, to this we can reach, which means we can reach to this pure truth through mitzvahs loisas. Mitzvahs loisas connect us to that pnim, to that truth. Similarly, the halachas that are laid out in front of us, sheheim bechinas mehus chochmah ilah. These halachas is the mehus of chochmah ilah. Every halacha is a representative of chochmah. Do it this way or do it that way. Ha-mislabesh boer hanshama demachas ubriya, which we're going to skip for the moment. But this is chochmah ilah. Essentially, as it comes down to us. Then the chochmah ilah datzilus itself, gashmi. It's impossible for it to be mislabesh halachas gashmi. This is atzilus. This is a lakus mamash. But then, in the state as this oir hachochm, oil of Pnimis Abba comes in a Malchus, the B'riya, Hagam Shezeh Mamos ha-mehus the chochmah ilah. Although that this is the very same mahus of chochmah ilah, the way it's mislabish in Malchus the B'riya, Mikol Mokoim, yet still, Harei Ze Yochel Yislabish V'alochas Hagashma. That mahus chochmah ilah is able then to be mislabish and to be expressed in Halochas Gashma. As we demonstrated, the Inyan that the very same truth and the very same pure and profound reality, when it is recognized through from a lower perspective, then it can be related to Mitzias or to a world of Mitzias. We'll just start the next section. Just step in. The same is true in the shomes. Sheyesh hefresh, where there is a difference between the shomes that tzilus, between the shomes the biyah. There's a difference between the shomes of atzilus and shomes of biyah. The Hagam, that although the Chol HaNeshomes Masima is Hey, all Neshomes Masima is fit with they fit with one another. They like Ayin, like twins. Mipnei shebe'emes kulom elokus mamash. Because in truth, all of them are elokus mamash. Neshama is elokus. Kmeishin is boily yil, as we explained earlier, Debra Maskit Natilas Leah. And yet still, yesh chiluk, there is a difference between the Neshama the Atzilus, the Neshama the Biyah. Between the Neshamas of Atzilus and the Neshamas of Biyah. Even though both are Neshamas of Elokus Mamash, and yet there's a difference between the Neshamas of Atzilus and the Neshamas of Biyah. Once it becomes in Biyah, it can relate to the world in much more readily than the way the Neshamas Atzilus. Like we point out many times. Point out many times. Very simple, a clear thing. It's not simple. You have to put some thought in, but it's a very clear thing. A quote from Baal Shem Tov. Shem Tov said, Mokin sheritzeni shal odom shom hu. In the place where his person's will is, that's where he is. He is there where his will is. Which means that at that level of Rotzoin, a person can be sitting here, but he wants to be over there, that's where he is. Because Rotzoin knows no boundaries. Why? Because we said again, because in the Neshama is an Atzmi. And whatever he wants to be, he is everywhere. An Atzmi is everywhere. That relates to the absolute truth. Like we say many times, that a human being is not in that city and that street where he is, he's in the whole world. To demonstrate this a lot closer to our seichel, we point many times, a phenomenal thing. When a person walks on a straight line on the street, even though he's walking on a straight line, he is definitely conscious, even in his conscious thought. He's walking on a straight line, on a street which is part of this whole city, part of the whole world. He's always on the whole world. Even though at this moment he's walking on this plank. A cat walks on a narrow path, but that's the only thing it knows. That's the only thing it knows. Pointed out many times. It's an interesting thing. Tightrope walking by a person, walking on a tightrope. You know what that is. It's a very challenging thing. Not many people can do it. Very few people, as a matter of fact, can do it. Look at this cat walking down the wire, like nonchalantly, like nothing happened. How come?
Yeah, funny thought. You could translate it also as like he's spaced out.
How is it? What's the answer? Yeah, the cat is always walking on a tight track. He doesn't have any breath of us. So he's walking on the earth. The human being cannot orient it. He walks on the broad, let's just say, on the whole world. He has to walk focus on that tightrope. It's very difficult. So, Mokim Shiritzin Shalom Shomhu. A person's that's Pshat and Atzma, because the Rebbe gave him the whole world. And that's his orientation. That's why we always mention a person, who is in prison, is a tremendous suffering. In prison, he's tremendous suffering. Why is he so suffering? He has his food and he has. As they said in the modern jails, he can't even play tennis. It's terrible. It's terrible. Because no matter what you give him, if he doesn't have the whole world, he doesn't have anything. That's a person. This is the claustrophobia, the claustrophobic. Person cannot be clustered, no matter what he is using at the moment. Whatever he is using at the moment, his orientation is that this is part of the whole reality. And if it's associated from the whole reality, he is suffering. So this is what something says, right? And yet, so mitzad the ritzoino, he is there. The whole world is connected and he is there. But then from this rotzen comes into seichel, and from the seichel comes into gashmius, and in order to be over there, he knows he has to make 100 steps or 1,000 steps. He has to get there. What enables him to get there? What gives him the inspiration? What enables him to? What carries him? It is the rotzen that he is there already. In other words, if this world, if being there would be in a totally different world, he couldn't do it. He's able to do it because he stays in the same world. It's the same reality. Except that's on a different level where it is in time and space, and therefore he takes time to get there. As he's walking, yes, he is changing, he's going from one street to the other, one neighborhood to another, one city to another, but he's still in the same world. To the person, it makes a big difference. He's in the same world. That's a reality. That's his reality, not the street and neighborhood.
The chochmah will, that's what senses the makom the place that a person desires to be.
That's rotz.
I know, but the chochmah is it gets there.
Chochmah senses that, but on the chochmah level, which is lower than rotz. That's what I'm saying. Pnimis abo, pnimis atik. Pnimis abo, chochmah senses this, but in chochmah this is sensed in the level of time and space, and this is why from chochmah it can go down into lower koiches. Chochmah then is translated in bina and translated in midas, and he can go and connect the two points by walking there.
That's already the statement that whatever place he wants to be, he's there. That's already a time and space statement.
No.
Because it has multiple places.
No. You say shomhu means that he is everywhere. Not that he got there. He is there. He is there not because he got there, but because he is there. How does he become there? Because he was there all the time. Now he is focusing on this part and they are focusing on this part. That's it, it's so
But there is a reality consisting of multiple theirs. You know, in other words, that it's not just
this multiple theirs. The reason that it could be that he is there from who is because these multiple theirs are part of one reality. Otherwise, he couldn't be there. Rotzen is on a higher level. Rotzen is above time and space. Like I said, a person who is jailed is missing nothing, practically speaking. He is suffering. Why? He's missing the whole thing.
missing the freedom. The freedom of being wherever he wants.
I'm trying to explain all the time. No, it's not. It's not being wherever he wants. He doesn't. What does he have to be over there for? He's got everything here.
So by yourself,
Because the place where he is not real. It's not part of the whole reality. That's what he's saying.
but Hashem wanted him to be there. Because
Hashem put the person on the whole world. On the Haaretz, on the earth, the whole world. You did not confine him to one place or the other. This is a concept that can help you in your.
I fully agree.
Huh?
I fully agree.
He's trying to say that Hashem put him in prison.
Hashem put him in prison.
I said if wherever a person is at, ultimately it's because Hashgacha Pratit brought him there, right? So I read somewhere where if a person has the
If his avoidance,
focuses
this is
in
a
the-
person. This is a person whose orientation is on an avoidance Hashem level. Yes, the Alter Rebbe in the prison. He had the Maggid came to visit him, or Hashem came to visit him. He was in a high world, but that was the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah, that's
Not too
why
many.
I said that, because I read the stories. Yeah.
First of all, I like the marshal detective.
Yeah.